everyone, so I just recently finished Fishman Island and I'm here today to talk about that, give you my thoughts on that one. But I just wanted to mention before we get started that you've probably realized over the past few videos that my camera's been a little bit out of focus or it's been a little bit blurry. Unfortunately, I can only see what the video quality looks like after I finish filming like so many hours of content. I have done so much troubleshooting on that camera, but I just cannot get it to play nice. So today I'm just using my iPhone 14 camera. It has 4K, so hopefully that's a little bit clearer. Sorry for all the blurriness in those last ones, but yeah, hopefully it's a bit clearer today. First up, we have the Return to Sobriety arc, which is where all the Straw Hats get together after being apart for 2 years and training for 2 years. I was so excited at this point, being able to see all the Straw Hats get back together and to also see just how strong they had become over the last couple of years and to see how different they looked. So I was really keen to see that. And the first Straw Hat that we get to see is Luffy, and he's on that island. I actually don't know what that island is called, but he's just finished up his training. And even from here, we can see how strong he's actually gotten just because he's made friends with those massive animals. I don't know what you call them, like beasts of the island. And back when we left him, he couldn't even like touch any of them, but now he made friends with them. So it was like a little bit of a taste of like how strong he'd actually become. And then Boa rocks up on the island and she's obviously swooning over him. He's a little bit older and he's obviously got a little bit more muscle. So she's just like swooning over him even more than she was before. And just like a side note, right? Boa is 31 at this point and Luffy is 19. That means that 2 years ago, Luffy would have been 17 and she would have been 19. Yeah, anyway, we'll just ignore that little age difference there. So funny though, the way that he responds to Boa, because he's just straight up like, I'm not going to marry you, Boa. Like he's just responded to the most beautiful woman in One Piece and said straight up, just rejects her, which is, I find that so funny. Then Brook enters the scene and we see that he's become this like massive rock star. Of course he has. And his managers are those two long-armed dudes from that island that he was dropped off by Kuma. And like, it's pretty random, but I see it. Next, we have Sanji, who has just arrived at Sobriety and he's being dropped off by a few of the Okamas and they're all like waving goodbye to him. And he's like flipping them off and he's like, I just never want to see you ever again. It's like he's just been completely traumatized by that island. And so he just walks away. And now he sees a woman for the first time in like 2 years. And you can imagine Sanji is just going absolutely crazy. Later on, every time he sees a woman, he just gets a nosebleed. Then we see Nami and she's ordering a drink at the bar. And I have to say, Nami has had such a massive glow up. Like, damn Nami, that she just looks amazing. In this bar, we're also introduced to the fake Straw Hats and they are all in it for like the fame and the glory and the money and they're trying to impersonate the Straw Hats, but it just looks absolutely ridiculous. Like anyone that knows the Straw Hat crew knows it's not them from a mile away. And fake Luffy is trying to coerce Nami to come have a drink with them, but Nami's ignoring them, so they start to get like really angry. And then that's when Usopp enters the bar and enters the scene. And Usopp is actually like looking pretty good too. He's a lot older. He looks more like a man, like he's grown up quite a bit. And he enters the scene and he uses his newfound powers that he learned from Hercules to basically like stop the attack from happening with the fake Straw Hats and saving Nami in the end. And then Nami jumps up and they have this like cute little reunion. Chopper probably had, I'd say, the funniest reintroduction. He was trailing along the fake Sanji, Zoro, and it was Robin. And he was just following behind them, like thinking that they were the real ones, chatting to them, asking them how their training went. And it was funny because it's like, Chopper, come on. Like, obviously that's not the real Straw Hats, but it was also really sad because the fake ones were just ignoring him and he was following behind them saying, oh, you guys, you look so different, but I don't care how you look. Like, obviously you've gone through so much training and it's been 2 years. So it was really sad because he's just so naive. And then later on when the fake Robin got kidnapped and all of the fake Straw Hats just did not care. They were like, yeah, like whatever. And Chopper's just like, I can't believe like you guys have changed so much. And that was a little bit heartbreaking because he thought that his whole career just completely changed, and then he went after fake Robin that got kidnapped. But it was like, he is such an adorable, innocent little soul, and we must protect him at all costs. And I just actually realized that I'm wearing a Tony Chocolate top. Pretty cool one, I like it. But this guy, we need to protect him at all costs. Robin also re-enters the scene at some point. I can't really remember when, but she ends up at the Thousand Sunny, and then that's where Frankie is. And the animation, it's changed quite a bit, but there's something so different about Robin's face. It's just, I can't pinpoint what it is, but it just looks so different. Maybe it's the eyes. Maybe the eyes are like bigger, but yeah, she just looks really different now. Let me know if you thought the same or like what you think it is. Anyway, Frankie has also changed quite a bit. His whole body is essentially just robotic now, which is quite interesting, but he's still the good old perv that we know and love. Later on, Sanji finds this fisherman who's panicking, saying that some guy came up to him wanting to go on the fish boat, but ended up going onto the complete incorrect ship that was on its, setting itself for the new world. And he's just panicking. And this is obviously none other than Zoro. Who else would it be? We suddenly see this ship that's sliced in half float up to the surface of the sea. I mean, these poor pirates, right? Like, the ship has just been sliced in half. And what has happened to them? They're all like perished? Like, what has happened to them? They're all drowned? Anyway, these poor pirates is all I'm saying. Then Zoro emerges, and in the most badass voice, like he's just won the biggest battle of his life, he says, but also, talking about glow-ups, you can certainly tell he's been training, because damn Zoro, those muscles are popping. Later on, there's this funny scene where Sanji makes this remark at Zoro for like not getting lost, because they can't spare another moment trying to look for him. And Zoro, in response, he's just complaining to himself about how the number 7 can talk to the number 1 like they're better than them, referring to the order that they reached the island, obviously like bagging Sanji out. And that's when they get into like this full fight like they usually do. And it was so nice just seeing the Straw Hats back to their antics together like they used to be. Meanwhile, the fake Straw Hats, they've managed to convince these rookie pirates to join their crew. Obviously, they want the power, they want the money, so they've got all these pirates to try and join their crew. And then that's when Caribou is, I don't know how to pronounce his name, but you know who I'm talking about. He's introduced to the scene, and he's just like this greasy, slimy, they call him wet hair, and there's a reason for it. But he is just vile. Him and his crew members are just absolutely vile, and they creep me out. But they then he goes and kills this innocent Marine. I don't like them. If you can't tell, I do not like them. They freak me out. Meanwhile, Brook is performing this massive concert to like a really large crowd. And then that's when his managers and some of the Marines end up ousting him as a pirate with a bounty. So he declares that this is his last concert, and then tells everyone that Luffy is still alive before yeeting out of the stadium. Fake Luffy and the crew end up having this confrontation with the Marines, who end up revealing that they are not actually the real Straw Hat crew. And Luffy's there in the background, and he's stunned by this because he's going on about how much fake Zoro and Sanji look like the real ones. I swear, that guy is just such an idiot, but we love him, right? It was also so cool seeing Luffy, Sanji, and Zoro just beat the crap out of the pacifistas when 2 years ago in Sabaody, they could barely touch them. They could barely make like any scratch on them. And then now they're actually beating them really easily. It was just like a good display of strength and the difference between how they were before and how they are now. There's also the scene where Luffy, Zoro, and Sanji are running to get to the Thousand Sunny, and Luffy notices Rayleigh in the back, so he turns around to thank him, and at the end he says he's going to be the Pirate King. Rayleigh has these tears in his eyes, like some proud dad just watching his son go out into the big, big wide world on their way to achieve their dream. For me, this was such a standout moment because it made me think about how much Luffy and the crew have gone through together to get to this point. And honestly, I felt like Rayleigh in that moment. I felt teary-eyed like some proud dad. Also, when you think about it, Luffy spent so much more time with Rayleigh than he did with his own crew. And so they 100% would have formed this bond in that 1.5 years that they spent together. What I loved about Return to Sobriety is that all the people who were there, who either helped them or helped train them in some way, were there and to help them again in some way to get off the islands, like Boa, Perona, the birds from Chopper's Island, which I cannot remember, the weather scientist, Hercules, like they were all there to help in the end. After this, they finally set sail for Fishman Island on their way to the New World. On the ship's way, plunging deeper and deeper into the sea, it's revealed that Caribou is actually following them along the way because they think that if they could kill all the Straw Hats, then they would obviously become quite famous in the world. And so they're following them along the way and they end up having a bit of a scuffle. And it's funny because Caribou, he leaves his ship at one point thinking that his ship will come and back him up. But I think it was the cow comes out and ends up stopping the ship from getting to the Straw Hats. So it's literally just Caribou on the ship thinking that they're all going to come, but they don't. So now he is trapped on the ship and he's with the Straw Hats going deeper and deeper into the sea on their way to Fishman Island. It was so cool actually going deeper and deeper into the sea because I felt like I was on the ship with them and going deeper into the ocean, and like the ocean just scares the crap out of me. So it was very like dark and very daunting to see. So I thought that was really cool. On their way, they end up bumping into this massive kraken monster who has managed to capture a shark. So they free the shark, and in the end, this bloody monster is coming after them and is going to take them all down. And of course, in that moment, Luffy's like, I'm going to make you my pet. And what does he do? He makes this freaking massive kraken monster his pet. Oh, yeah. But it ends up being really cute, this little monster. Anyway, this massive kraken is now carrying the ship with the Straw Hats in them, getting them along to Fishman Island, and they fall into a massive dark trench, which I think is parallel to like the Marina Trench. That's kind of what I felt, which was absolutely terrifying. Like I wouldn't be surprised if there is actually a whole island full of fishmen down that Marina Trench. They fall into that and then they end up right outside Fishman Island. That's when they bump into a few of like these massive sea beasts, and we get introduced to some of the new fishermen pirates, and they just look like evil guys. But yeah, they all end up getting split up. Of course they do. They always get split up before they enter a new world. A few of them end up back at Cammy's place. She's now reintroduced, and I think it was Sanji, Chopper, and Usopp. And obviously Sanji is now like, because all of Cammy's friends come in and they're all mermaids, and Sanji is just having the time of his life, saying that he is now in the all blue, now in heaven basically. They're all just relaxing at her place, kind of recouping. Then they make their way up to Mermaid Cove, where all the mermaids are hanging out. I have to say, one thing I enjoy most about One Piece is getting introduced to all of the new worlds and the islands, just learning about all of their rules and seeing all the different aspects and themes, and also uncovering all of their mysteries. I particularly like the feel of Fishman Island. It reminded me of The Little Mermaid, which is like one of my favorite Disney movies, and also Fishtail. Oh man, that was a good movie. I haven't seen that movie in so long. But the feel of Fishman was so cool. I've always been fascinated by the sea and also terrified of it. And I've always wondered how cool it would be to just live in the ocean and like live amongst the fish. And so that was really like touching on my childhood dreams. Actually, oh man, that has just sparked a memory of, I don't know if anyone knows this one, but H2O Just Add Water was a show that I used to watch growing up, and I always wanted to be a mermaid. And that has just evoked a memory in me right now. They're just all chilling in Mermaid Cove. Sanji is just in absolute heaven. They're just all having a good time. And then the three princes ends up rocking up, and I cannot for the life of me remember all of their names. I think it's Fukaboshi, Namboshi, Ryuboshi? Ryugoshi, I don't know. Yeah. It's difficult to remember, but yeah, they all end up arriving, and so the mermaids think that they're there to arrest or capture the Straw Hats. So there's this hilarious scene where one of the mermaids end up grabbing Sanji and like placing him in her bosom to try and hide him. So Sanji has now completely lost it, and he has this massive nosebleed. He's just bleeding and bleeding and bleeding. He's losing so much blood, and now he's just in danger. His life is now threatened. because he hadn't seen a woman in so long, and now he's just obviously had this experience. So yeah, he needs a doctor. And all of the blood transfusion, all the blood that Chopper had has now completely gone because Sanji already used it all. So they're kind of in danger now. They end up rushing Sanji to, I think it was a cafe, or maybe it was their like little hospital. I can't remember the place. But it turns out that there were some Okamas on the island, and they were happy to use their blood to help save Sanji. But Sanji was just absolutely mortified that this happens. He's spent so long now thinking that he's left them all behind, and he's just trying to forget everything. But now they're these ones that saved his life. So he was really angry and really upset at this whole situation. Whilst this was happening though, King Neptune ended up actually just wanting to invite the Straw Hats to his palace, just as a thank you for saving Megaloo. That was the shark that they saved earlier from the massive kraken, who Luffy ends up naming Sirime. While they're all up in the palace, they're all chatting to King Neptune except for Zoro, because he's drinking like he usually does. And then of course Luffy wanders off like he usually does in search for more food. And that's when he stumbles across Shirahoshi's bedroom, and she's the princess. So he stumbled across her bedroom and he just enters it. And I honestly did not like Shirahoshi at the start. She was just whiny, and she was made out to be like, I think that's exactly how you're supposed to perceive her at the start. But yeah, she was just a complete crybaby, just crying constantly about every single little thing. And even Luffy declares to her face that he does not like her. And I just love Luffy's brazenness. It's hilarious during these times. After a bit of chit chat, Luffy ends up convincing Shirahoshi to leave her bedroom, which she has not done in 10 years, because it's a whole different story with pirate Vanderdecken, who uses his devil fruit powers to mark her. And that means that anything that he throws will just like follow that thing that he's marked. So he does that because he wants to marry Shirahoshi. And so this whole time she's been locked up because they don't want, her to get harmed. Luffy convinces her to leave her bedroom and he will protect her at all costs. And then they end up getting out. After this, everything sort of descends into a little bit of chaos because the guards find some of the mermaids have been kidnapped, and they think that it's the Straw Hats, when in fact it was actually Mr. Slimy the whole time. And so they're out to arrest the Straw Hats, and everyone now in the palace is under threat because they're about to get arrested. There's also this funny scene where Brook ends up running off to try and check on Shirahoshi, and he's got the Minister of the Right on his back. And once they reach Shirahoshi's room, he goes on to say that the minister was riding his bones too hard. Oh, Brook. He's a good laugh. He cracks some good jokes. On their way to the Sea Forest, there is this hilarious scene where Luffy and Shirahoshi end up in like the middle of the town, and all of the people are gossiping and saying like that Luffy is out there to kidnap Shirahoshi because of all the rumors that have been going around. And so Shirahoshi is standing there right behind Sanji, and then Chopper sees and is like, Sanji, whatever you do, just do not turn around. You will die if you turn around. And then Sanji realizes, and he's like, she's behind me, isn't she? He knows that Shirahoshi is right there behind him. And so he's like, I'd rather die than not see Shirahoshi. So he turns around and he just turns into stone. Literally just turns into stone instead of getting the nosebleed. And so Chopper was like, it's probably because of the Akama's blood transfusion. And so I found that hilarious. Just Sanji, he just cannot contain himself. After the Straw Hats were captured back at the palace, Hody Jones and Vanderdecken end up storming the palace and taking it over. And this is kind of like their coup d'etat, where they're taking over the palace and they're taking over Fishman Island. Hody Jones was introduced a little bit earlier when we see Hachan telling him to kind of stop what he's doing. And he, at this point, is like, I don't know how I felt about Hody Jones. I kind of found him a bit boring as a villain. He just didn't really have a lot of like depth to his character, especially at the start. Like I felt like there was just not a lot of depth there. So yeah, I kind of found it a little bit boring. I actually found Vanderdecken a little bit more interesting just because I felt like he was more evil in a sense. He was forcing Shirahoshi to marry her against his will, and he was gonna kill her if she didn't reciprocate his love. So they end up storming the palace, and King Neptune is now really fearful for Shirahoshi's life. And so he asks the Straw Hat if they could please protect her to go rescue her. And then Zoro ends up slashing Hody Jones and basically like defeating him in that moment. It was a pretty brutal wound inflicted upon him. To be honest, from this point up until the Sea Forest where all the Straw Hats meet Jinbei, it kind of dragged a bit. And it was interesting to see all of the backstory with Jinbei, but I think after that, up until later on when the Straw Hats re-enter and they get to kind of beat up Hody Jones, those little segments, they just dragged for me. I struggled to get through a few of the episodes. One by one, the Straw Hats make it to the Sea Forest, except for I think Zoro, Brook and Usopp, who are locked up away still in the palace. Nami ends up confronting Jinbei, asking him why he let Arlong out into the East Blue and allowed him to torment her island for so long and cause all this trauma on her. And so that's when Jinbei goes into a bit of the backstory, and he is absolutely beside himself that all of that even happened. And so we get to see a bit of the backstory with Fisher Tiger and Queen Otohime. Fisher Tiger's background and his story and how he ended up dying was so sad. He just wanted to free the slaves, the human slaves, and to just create peace amongst the fishmen and amongst the humans. The way that he died in the end on the island where he was saving a human, and then the Marines ended up shooting him down because he was a fishman. Even in the end, when he was dying, he was like, Jinbei, please don't tell anyone that I was killed by humans. I don't want to create more hate. I don't want the kids to know about this and for this generational hate to continue. He just wanted peace amongst all of them. And then there was Queen Otohime's backstory, where she was just also just striving for peace among fishmen and humans, and she wanted everyone in Fishman Island to surface to the land and to integrate with the humans and just peace. Like, they both just wanted peace for their people. But she was just trying so hard to get all of the fishermen's signatures. But the way that celestial dragon ended up on Fishman Island injured, and even after being an asshole, pointing a gun at everyone, Otohime was like, no, everyone stop. We need to rescue this celestial dragon and send him back up. We're not people that are going to kill. And so they end up doing that. And then the celestial dragon was just a complete asshole. I know you don't want to spread the hate and violence is never the answer, but oh my God, I just wanted them to shoot that celestial dragon. They need to be punished, all of them. They do not deserve any kind of sympathy, in my opinion. After that, Otohime ended up joining that celestial dragon to the surface and to try and negotiate with the world nobles. And a little bit later, she returned with a piece of paper from the world nobles stating that the Fishman Island can basically surface and live on the land. But first, she needed the signatures of enough people to bring everyone up. So now she is this light of hope in Fishman Island, that she is finally going to bring peace to fishmen and humans, and everyone can now integrate and be happy. But then it comes a day where they're finally getting all these signatures, and she's finally managing to get people to come around to coming to the surface, and she's getting literally just enough signatures when everything randomly just starts setting on fire. All of the signatures are now burning and they're on fire. Otohime is obviously devastated, so she runs up and she's trying to save as many signatures as she can. That's when Hody Jones appears and shouts out that it was a human that shot her. At this point, I was like, of course, this is Hody Jones. He's trying to get all of the fishmen against the humans. He doesn't want everyone to integrate. He doesn't want that peace. He just wants power from the fishmen people. Well, kind of. The scene with Otohime passing away was just so sad, with all of the three princes surrounding her and Shirahoshi, and her just saying it was a human, but promise me that you will not show hate and you will not continue the cycle of hatred. And they all promised her that they wouldn't. And it was just the way that she just passed away, and they were all devastated, and Shirahoshi was just crying her heart out. And oh man, yeah, I cried in this scene. I was not expecting it, because kind of, like I said before, like it was dragging a little bit throughout this time, but this kind of hit me like a ton of bricks as just to how emotional it is. Once Jinbei's explanation ends and Jinbei and Nami have a bit of a moment where Nami ends up forgiving Jinbei and being like, it's not your fault this has happened, and she doesn't hold any grudges against the Fishman. Then they hear over the speakerphone that Hody Jones himself is going to kill the king in 3 hours. Luffy is just like full guns blazing, trying to get away so he can save King Neptune, and then Jinbei is like, absolutely not, under any circumstances are you leaving, and so they get into a little bit of a scuffle. And then all of a sudden Robin appears and she is in the middle of the two. And then that's when Sanji is like, oh my god, I gotta save Robin. So all three of them are just like on this collision course. And then poof, it turns out that it was one of Robin's clones. And so they all just collide with each other in this like one massive boom. I love that scene. The fact that Robin entered like that and was like, we're all friends here. Like, why are you guys fighting? Stop fighting, in such a like Mama Robin way. This cat, he has to join. Okay, he's gone now. Meanwhile, back at the palace where Zoro, Usopp and Brook are just locked up in a cage, the sea level now starts to rise because I think the bubble is like now shrinking, and so like the sea is now coming up into the cage, so they're going to drown at some point. Brook then turns into a ghost and exits his body, like his soul exits his bone body, and they're all like, oh my god, like, Brook, you have a brand new power, that's so cool. And then that's something that he's learned over the past couple of years. He's learned to just leave his body, and his soul then just like kind of drifts away. And then he stares the absolute shit out of Papag. Papag's just like trying to run away from him, but he's just trying to get him to get the key. They all end up escaping and then make their way down to the court to also try and save King Neptune. Skipping forward to the courtyard where Hody Jones is there with some of the other new Fishman pirates, and Shirahoshi, Jinbei and Megaloo all arrive, and Luffy is like nowhere to be found. And there's also the three princes who tried to also rescue Neptune, but they're now tied up, and King Neptune is still there tied up. So they're all in the courtyard, and they're all like having a discussion. And at some point during this interaction in the courtyard, it was revealed that Hody Jones was the one that shot Otohime and ended up killing her in the end. And then Shirahoshi told everyone that she actually knew. So this whole time in the past 10 years, she knew that Hody Jones was the one that killed her mum, but she kept it to herself because she didn't want the hatred to continue. She promised to her mum that she wouldn't let the bitterness and the cycle of hatred to continue. So she kept that to herself so that wouldn't happen. So at that point, I was like, okay, Shirahoshi, you're actually a lot more courageous than I thought you were. Like, at the start, she was a complete crybaby, and everything that happened to her, she would just cry. But at this point, it's like, oh, you kept that to yourself this whole time. It's really like, it's a sign of strength, even though she's not that strong within herself. That is a sign of strength. The next few episodes were a bit bleh. There was just like these interactions, but it got a lot more exciting when Luffy suddenly jumped out of Megalo, and it turns out that he was just like sitting in Megalo the whole time just before Hody Jones was about to kill Neptune. So he popped out, and all of a sudden he's gonna save the day. And now all of the Straw Hat crew start appearing, and Nami comes out of nowhere with Robin, and they end up unlocking Neptune, and Neptune gets away. And then, Frankie comes in with his machinery in the ship, and all the crew are now back together about to fight this battle. And for me, this is where it starts to get a bit more exciting. These little battles that the Straw Hats had with the crew members of the Fishman Pirates was such a showcase of all of their skills that they had learned over the past couple of years. Like with Nami, she had learned so much about the weather on Weatheria that she was able to use I don't know what that stick is called, but she was just able to use that so much more like proficiently. She was able to like use the lightning on such a large scale. There was even this moment where one of the pirates said that they need to target her because she's the weakest point. And she was just like, I am a coward, but I'm still strong. She's not weak anymore. She's not the weakest point. With Robin, she is now able to really utilize her flower fruit, where her arms are turned into like these massive legs and is like stomping everyone. And so she's taking out a lot of the pirates. There's like 100,000 of them at this point. So they're trying to take down as many as possible. Then Frankie, he's in this massive robot and he's like managing to use all of his new technology to take down all of the pirates. Chopper is in a brand new form. He turns into that massive beast where when he turned into it before, he lost all sense of himself. But at this point, he now is able to control it and he's able to be in it for a few minutes where he does not lose control. So he's really honed in on those particular skills. Usopp has become even more wittier, where he uses his powers to outsmart the enemy, and he's so much more confident. He was a lot more cowardice before this, and he still is, but he's a lot more confident in himself and in his abilities. So that was really cool to see him progress in that way. Brook's sword skills have obviously improved so much, where he's able to slice someone without them even knowing, and also getting the ability for his soul to leave his body. Zoro is just a beast. He's getting stronger and stronger and stronger, and using his different sword styles. They're all so powerful and they're just going to continue getting stronger. And then it's revealed that Sanji is able to use Geppo, so he's able to jump in the air, and that like allows him to kind of get higher and higher and essentially fly in the air. So that was cool. He picked up that skill and he's obviously become so much stronger. And then there's Luffy, who literally uses his Emperor's Haki to wipe out so many pirates, like majority of that 100,000 pirates, just wipes them out in an instant. He's obviously really strong as well. Tsurame also re-enters the scene, and it turns out that Hody has been threatening him with going after his brother in like the North Seas. Tsurame was going along with Hody this whole time to try and protect his brother. But then Luffy comes in and is like, I will protect your brother, you know, stay on my side. And so Tsurame just like so sweetly is like, okay, I'll trust you, Luffy, kind of thing. Obviously he can't talk, but he's putting his full trust in Luffy now, and so he starts protecting Shirahoshi. Everyone is now battling and they're trying to get through as many of these new Fishman pirates as possible so they can get to Hody Jones. And turns out that Vanderdecken was gone into like this complete anger-driven stupor. He ends up resurfacing it's like a Noah's Ark that was built long time ago, and there's like still a mystery behind it, but King Neptune was told to protect it through like generations to make sure to protect it, because one day it's going to be used. And Vanderdecken ended up like putting his mark on it and then making it float to Fishman Island and basically put it on a collision course with Fishman Island to destroy it all. Because if he can't have Shirahoshi, no one can. Which is why I think this guy is just so evil. And at one point, I felt like he was more evil than Hody Jones. Now at this point, Shirahoshi just full steps up and she manages to guide the ship away from Fishman Island, because obviously Vanderdecken is after her. He wants to kill her this whole time. So she manages to steer the ship away from Fishman Island, and it's raging after her. She could be killed at any point. And that's another kind of addition to how she does actually have that hidden courage within her. And she's not actually as a scaredy cat or as much of a coward as she's made out to be. After a bit of a boost from Sanji, Luffy ends up propelling up to the Ark and making it onto like one of the chains. And it turns out that Hody is already there and on the Ark because he wants to try and kill Decken. And also this whole time he's been popping these steroid pills. So his hair is now white and he's just become stronger and stronger and stronger this whole time. Now there's like this bit of a scuffle, and Hody ends up on the ship and ends up stabbing Decken, and Decken is just on the verge of dying. And that means if he dies, then the Ark is falling back and it's going to be back on a collision course with Fishman Island. Shirahoshi is just trying her absolute best to steer the ship away as quickly as possible just before Decken, passes away. And then Fukaboshi is now up against Hody Jones because Luffy can't breathe underwater. So he's got this massive bubble. He can't do anything. So Fukaboshi is like, I will handle this. In this moment, Hody is just raging violent. He is showing and expressing so much anger that Fukaboshi is like, why are you doing this? What did humans do to you to make you be so angry like this? And Hody responds saying, nothing. The humans have done nothing to him. And it's symbolic of the generational hatred that has been passed on to him, the absolute bitterness between each side, that even if that other side has done absolutely nothing to him, he still hates them. This is like a massive reveal later on as to Hode's true nature. And his true nature is that he is just a product of his environment. This is what he's been taught growing up in, I think, one of the Fishman districts, where he's interacted with Arlong and he's heard all of the stories about the awful things that humans have done to the Fishman pirates. And he's taken that onto himself and created this own idea of who humans have been. And over the years, that's just like continuously festering in him, causing him to become the person that he is. Throughout the whole arc, there were so many themes of like individual personality, and everyone is different. And there was also the theme of the differences between the fishmen and the humans, and the constant battles between them and the struggles that both of them face. And also trying to bring peace amongst both of these races. But it didn't really, it didn't really hit me as hard throughout the arc. I noticed the themes, and there were so many good moments relating to that. But this moment with Hody Jones at the end, it tied everything together for me. It made this arc so much better. It kind of like it clicked in me like, wow, that is an incredible revelation. There's just so much in this arc that reflects the real world and the hatred between different peoples, different cultures, different societies. It's always like one side or the other, and trying to stop that cycle of hatred, that it doesn't need to be like that. This arc also like highlighted propaganda and how governments just show one side of a story so that they can form some kind of narrative, so that the people end up hating, like causing so much hate between two sides. There's just so many reflections in the real world, and in that moment it just all clicked. So that was just probably my favorite moment out of the whole arc. The guards in the tower outside Fishman Island ended up being able to shoot one of the massive air bubbles to surround the ark, which would stop it from falling so quickly into Fishman Island. And in doing so, Luffy was able to punch Hody into the ship and create like an air bubble for him to beat him. And then in the end, he managed to beat him up and defeat him. But now there's still this issue of the ark falling into Fishman Island. Now Luffy is trying his best to break the ark down so that it won't reach Fishman Island. It will just like disintegrate into pieces. He's strong, but he in this moment is wounded, and there's no way he's going to be able to disintegrate the ship quick enough so that it doesn't hit Fishman Island. All of a sudden, the arc stops and it pans to Shirahoshi, who's surrounded by the sea beast. Earlier on, we learn that Shirahoshi actually has the ability to communicate with the sea beast or control the sea beast as well. And then in this moment, it turns out she called them. And so the sea beast, they actually flew by Luffy, and Luffy could understand what they were saying. And so afterwards, they're a little bit like shocked about this, because not everyone can hear sea beast. So Shirahoshi is now communicating with the sea beast, and they mention that they wish they could have stepped in a little bit sooner so they could save the ark. And there are so many mysteries. Like throughout this arc, actually so many mysteries unfolded that haven't been answered yet, and that I don't think will be answered for a very long time. But they're keeping me on edge. I'm like, what is happening here? Who is Joy Boy? Like, what is going on here? There's a scene towards the end where Luffy has lost a lot of blood and is literally about to pass away, but none of the crew have his blood type, and there's that law in place where fishmen cannot give humans blood. So everyone is still so terrified of doing this, but Jinbei steps forward as he has the right blood type. Jinbei is just such a legend. He is just there to support. He's great. And this was such a poetic way to end this battle. After years of resentment and hostility between humans and fishmen throughout the generations, the cycle is finally ending and peace isn't so far off. Basically, the day is saved. All of the new fishmen pirates were captured and thrown into jail. And then Luffy just wanted to get out of Fishman Island. He didn't want to be a hero. He just wants food. So he didn't want all of the charades and to everyone to celebrate him as a hero. So he was like, we're leaving. they left, and then Shirahoshi was like, wait, don't go yet. What managed to convince Luffy is that Neptune was going to hold a banquet for them and that he was going to be able to eat as much as he wanted. So they were like, all right, we're turning the ship down. We're going to the palace, we're eating, and then we can leave. So they will have a massive banquet in the spirit of One Piece after every massive arc and battle. They always love having a banquet, and that was really fun to see. Sanji is just having the time of his life with the mermaids, and so is Brook. Brook is also having the time of his life, and Zoro is just drinking. Actually, Nami is also drinking, getting drunk. But in the midst of it all, Robin pulls Neptune aside. Actually, there was a little funny interaction where Robin pulls him aside and like, can I have a chat with you? And then Neptune's like, whoa, like, I know Otohimi's passed, but I'm still married, thinking that Robin is coming onto him. That was funny. But then Robin goes straight into like the fact that she read the poneglyph and she's asking about the Noah's Ark. And then it's revealed that Shirahoshi is one of the ancient weapons, which is wild. It is a wild revelation. And she apparently has the power to destroy the world, which is crazy. The fact that Shirahoshi started out as like this little crybaby who has a lot of courage within her and she's got potential, but the fact that she is one of the ancient weapons that has the power to destroy the world, Oda chose the most just interesting character to be the ancient weapon. Before the Straw Hats leave, there's this interaction between Luffy and Big Mom's priors and Big Mom herself, where Luffy states that he will challenge Big Mom and take the land as his own territory, of course, in his brazenness. And this just makes me so excited for the whole Cake Island arc, although it's still like hundreds of episodes away. Then the Straw Hats leave the island, and it's always so sad when the Straw Hats leave an island. It's like bittersweet because I feel like I've gone through such an adventure with them and with this island that it's sad to leave it behind. Arc just ends off with them making their way back up to the surface and making their way into the new world. But they end up entering this really rare vortex in the sea that brings them to a place where there's whales. And then, actually, there's a really, really sweet sentimental moment where these whales pop up and they all have the scars on their heads. And at first I was like, oh my God, it's Laboon. Like, how did Laboon get here? And I started to tear up because I'm like, finally, Brook is going to be able to meet up with Laboon again. But then it's just shown that it's his relatives. It's not actually Laboon. It's just whales that look like him. But then Brook starts to play the song that makes me so sad. And then the whales really enjoy this and they're really happy to see the Straw Hats. So they end up giving them a lift up to the surface. So those are all my thoughts on Fishman Island. I feel like the arc overall was actually quite political and it reflected the real world in a lot of ways. As usual, please let me know all your thoughts on the arc, whether you liked it or whether you disliked it because of the pacing or any themes that I missed throughout. Otherwise, I hope you all have a lovely night, day, whatever it is over there, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!